Kia ora, g'day, welcome back. This is my second attempt at my reaction to Sam Bamford's Two Words Collide podcast and his interview with Scott Jones, or otherwise known as ScoJo. So the first live reaction that I did to this, it got taken down for copyright by YouTube. I don't think Sam did it because I had actually asked Sam for his permission if he wouldn't mind if I did a reaction to his interview with Scott Jones. And he was gracious enough to allow me to do that, to say go for it. So here we are with take two. I'll try and change it and upload it a little bit differently so that hopefully it doesn't get blocked or done for copyright. So anyway, let's jump in.
That's what I was saying. So you can't swear in the first 10 minutes of these episodes because YouTube will throttle the episode.
I'm sorry, mate.
We just did start this 20 seconds ago. And then I swore in the first 10 seconds and then you swore. So I had to press pause and then delete the old version. And now we're back here now.
It wasn't a slur. I think you'll find I said it very clearly.
But, mate, ScoJo, welcome to Two Words Collide podcast. A very, very important episode to combat the lies and the audacity and the disgustiveness and how the Channel 9 news organisation with Nick McKenzie have ran this story. And
great bloke.
Fantastic man.
You know, I can't remember what I said in the live. That was a while ago when I did the live reaction to this, but puts a smile on my face hearing him talk about the swearing thing. Maybe there's a whole bunch, well, not maybe, there's obviously a whole bunch of other stuff in the background of YouTube that I'm not aware of, hence why I've had quite a number of live reaction videos of mine basically removed or blocked by YouTube for copyright. So I've gotten copyrights, but they said this doesn't result in a copyright strike. So thankfully, because I think I only get 3 of those, and then my channel is kaput.
I'm assuming he's going to come for us all at one stage after this.
Yeah.
But, mate, ScoJo, welcome to Two Words Collide podcast. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming to Adelaide.
It's a pleasure to be here, mate. It's not often I meet up with dudes I met on the internet and they fly me to exotic locations for a chat. I feel like I'm on Epstein Island or something. But here we are, mate. And I just listened to your podcast that you did with Shane Warne's son, which was awesome, very wholesome.
He's a good man, isn't he?
And I feel like I'm sitting in this chair, so maybe I might get a little bit of his special powers and I can start bowling leg spin again. Oh, it's getting too cold for cricket now.
I know. But, mate, yeah, obviously there's been a lot of things happening over the past week. And what we know about the Ben Roberts-Smith stuff is pretty much only what's been put out in the media. And the media have been very heavily one-sided on this to try and prop up their boy Nick McKenzie.
It's an understatement, eh? Like, you know, I'm sure, and I know Sam knows that, but man, the media have gone massively one-sided. I've spoken about that. I don't know how media can have the ability to just label somebody, in this case RS, a war criminal, when no charges had been laid at that point. He hadn't been arrested and it hasn't gone to trial and he hasn't been convicted. But all of those allegations and the headings and the titles all make it seem like and have had a massive impact on people in Australia, whether they've been servicemen and women or not. And yeah, it's just being able to manipulate and push the narrative one way is massive for the media.
Kenzie, and to ensure that, you know, their news organisation and media outlets have a, you know, truth teller position, which we all know is absolute horseshit.
Yeah, well, so, if you're profiting off something that you write a story about, you know, there's obviously going to be a bit of a bias there to get clicks and put a headline out there that, you know, I've had journalists say to me directly, like, well, that article got 1 million views, so I got paid. Okay.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you.
But not good for the people that have fought for this country and fought for their freedoms to be able to write those articles.
Absolutely.
So I thought I'd get you in because, look, you've been through the process
of low moral character and integrity is a thought that comes to mind for those journos that sit back and say things like that and or don't care. Like they want that. They obviously got into journalism and television because they want that. They crave that attention. They want that acknowledgement from people that, you know, they're good people or whatever, and they like all those awards that they receive as a result of that. And I think that twat McKenzie still got an award even after the editing of gunshots into Heston Russell's video clip, which is just a load of rubbish.
of having your house raided and all this other stuff. I'm going to let you explain that because I don't want to take your story for you. But maybe, just maybe, let's just add a bit of credit to your story and give you a bit of a brief background of yourself.
Yeah, too easy. So I joined the Army in 2008 from beautiful little place in Western Sydney called Campbelltown. You might have heard of it. This time of year, absolutely phenomenal. I wanted to be a soldier. And I joined as a rifleman initially, realized that wasn't maybe for me because I actually want to get out and one day do more of the ASIS space in the national intelligence community. So I switched to be an electronic warfare operator. So primary role of these boys overseas, depending on what technology the enemy is using, is to carry equipment that can exploit that technology. So Afghan, for example, listening to and finding out the location of the Taliban when they're talking on their radios. And then depending if they switch to mobile phone use, then we would have the equipment. It was like a golf bag solution. See the golf clubs here. What we would take on the job was depending on what we were targeting. And then you had the option back then in the Army to do selection.
Hopefully, well, maybe not hopefully, but people listening to this and those that may not know, or those that may be thinking about joining the military, like there's lots of cool stuff that you can do, And so the Bears or the EW guys like Skojo here, they have got some massively beneficial tools in their tool bag, especially when it comes to work, and then being able to transition, if and when and as and when people decide to, out of that role or out of the military and go into something else. Having skills like that would be highly sought after, I would imagine.
And become a Special Forces qualified commando. And you could earn the Green Beret that you see, your cousin wore before his passing. And I did that. So I did the whole selection and reinforcement cycle, became a commando, but kept my job because I felt that the best asset I could be might not be the number 6 in the team carrying the gun or the breaching charge, but the dude carrying the signals equipment to locate enemy signals so that the boys around me could kill the bad guys, and also to prevent them getting ambushed. So our role was to take away the situational awareness from the Taliban because they didn't know we were listening to them, and they weren't aware at the time. We knew how to find them. Every time they transmitted on their radio, it would give us a location to them. And as you can imagine, for a sniper, when they're looking across the whole valley, looking for someone to shoot, looking for a bad dude to put down, it's pretty handy having a dude that can tell you, if you look along this bearing, approximately 500 meters away, there's a dude planning an IED. And we got to put on every deployment, every job, every mission. I don't think there was many missions where they didn't bring an electronic warfare operator. Pretty handy to have.
Cool. All right. So how many trips have you done?
So I did one Special Operations Task Group deployment to Afghanistan 2013, 2 deployments to Iraq combating the Islamic State 2014, 15, 16, 17. I also did 2 tag rotations, Tactical Assault Group, and I did a couple of little grey roll deployments I'm not allowed to talk about.
All right. So you're well qualified to talk about the current situation that we're in, given that you've been in combat.
Grey rolls was something that was spoken about while I was still with 4RAR, actually. And in Team 1, we had, there were 2 guys that were ex-SASR that were, I think they were out, and they were chocos or reserves who had come back to 4RAR, came over to Team 1. They were in Recce Platoon, and the third guy was a guy that I've spoken about before that had, I want to say, I think he was on selection and cycle with Blaine Dids, because it was Hinchy who told me about one of his good mates and says, "Hey Joe, when you get over west, say g'day to a good mate of mine." And he gave me his full name, Blaine, middle name Diddums. And I was like, I thought, okay, but I'll probably never meet the guy. I didn't really meet him. We just got some punishments from him at one stage during cycle. So I never had an opportunity. I probably did have the opportunity. I could have gone up and said hello, but I was still very much wired from NZ, and you don't just go and talk to the badged operators and that sort of thing, and you don't speak to them unless they speak to you, even though it was very different in Australia and it wasn't like in NZ. Yeah, I didn't. Once I identified who he was, I didn't go up and chit-chat with him anyway, especially as he was an instructor and I was just one of the students on cycle.
In the high stress environment for any Australian soldier, given that you deployed with 2 Commando, the Special Forces Regiment. Now, there are allegations against
Oh, bloody hell. I forgot. I was talking about the grey roll stuff and then I got sidetracked there. Sorry, rest in peace to Dids as well. The grey roll stuff, yeah. So that was spoken about. One of the guys that was with us, he didn't go into a lot of detail, but he did speak a lot about, the grey rolls, the grey rolls, this, grey rolls, that, and how much he enjoyed it. Being involved in some stuff, or he was involved in some stuff with the AFP, working on projects and tasks involved in the more national security civilian space, involving certain groups or organizations that he was a part of and supported and assisted, I guess, from his perspective and in his role in terms of, dare I say, infiltrating certain organizations. So I never did any of that, but it sounded, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good.
And certain 2 Commando members, but there's also the allegations against Ben Roberts-Smith. Now, this is all going to tie in together. We're probably going to talk about the whole thing in regards to the Brereton inquiries and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start off with Ben Roberts-Smith. Let's also start off with the process that he's going through now, because you've sort of been through it. So just explain to us, like, your house getting raided, you getting arrested, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. So not just me, obviously, like there was over 400 fellas that got interviewed and accused of different things, varying in nature and severity during that time. And a number of the boys, whether you were ever to be charged or not, just to rattle the cage, we feel, they went after a lot of the boys, and a lot of the houses being raided. As of almost 2 weeks ago, one of the boys got his house raided.
Yeah, I didn't call me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's shattering, at this point in our lives, we're just dads. We've moved on.
Yeah. House raided in front of his 2 little girls. His wife was out the back. His wife's now struggling. His 2 little girls are thinking, why is the AFP coming to my dad's door and kicking his house in?
Yeah.
What's he done wrong? He's a war hero.
Yeah, your neighbours in your street, you've built up.
And that's the thing, like, are the AFP going in and kicking in the doors of these former soldiers? Like, what was this, as little as 2 weeks ago, whatever it was Skojo said? And Sam, I think he mentioned the guy that happened to called him. Are the AFP that, I want to say stupid, but are they being that stupid that they're booting in the doors of former soldiers who've gone away, fought, and probably trying to put that part of their lives to bed and look to move on and do whatever else it is that they're doing? Would they be so, probably insensitive is the word as well that comes to mind. Could you not just knock on the door? Maybe they are. So maybe they haven't booted in the doors, but from what I've heard, it doesn't sound good. It sounds like, AFP or police, people involved in doing these raids, have been very, very aggressive by the sounds of things towards their own people. So I'd love to hear from any of these AFP officers, maybe Sam might get some of them on one day, who have been involved in the raids, who could maybe counter the claims that they just booted indoors or that they've been going around booting indoors. It's a thought that just enters my mind now. I don't know if I spoke about this or had this question when I did the live reaction to this interview, but it just seems like wrong to me that they would go and do that, and why they would do that to their own people who have gone and fought, like I said, and served their country is just, is beyond me.
Bit of rapport with the 80-year-old neighbour across the street putting his bins out and stuff, and then he's like, hey, Scotty, what was that tactical team doing kicking your front door in?
Yeah.
And you got to explain that you're not a drug dealer. And
it's still, I just want to let everyone know, it's still happening to today.
Absolutely. To today. Yeah. Well, when the head of the OSI is on $800,000 a year, why would you stop? That I don't know his intentions. He might be the best lawyer in the world, but I can tell you right now, if I was on $800K a year, I'd be working pretty hard to keep things moving along. I wouldn't be in a rush to shut it down.
It can't be that good. It's taken over a decade to just get to the point whereby there's been 2 arrests, Oliver Schultz and Ben Roberts-Smith. So, and then the other 300 million. So, over a decade, so he's racked up about 9 million, say 10 million, whatever. Round it down, say 8 million if he's on $800K a year. It'd be probably well over 10 million by now if it's been going on for more than a decade, right? So there's that gone. Then all the other money, where the heck is that gone? It's just, it's nuts to me.
But my specific circumstances, I was eventually went through the court process and was found not guilty, never convicted of anything. And I signed a legal.
Good.
non-disclosure agreement, or it's called a deed of service, apparently in legal terms, where you are not allowed to talk about it. So I settled the matter with.
Wow. So they're very like this office of the special investigator. What a bunch of pricks, eh? Like from my perspective, you take somebody through all that process, kicking in their door. By the sounds of things, that's what Skojo here had happened to him. And then at the end of that, once they're found not guilty of any crimes, of anything, they then have to sign a NDA or a deed of service, I think he described it as, where he's not allowed to talk about it. I'm glad he's talking about at least what he can here on Sam Bamford's. Maybe there was a time frame on it. I don't know. Maybe it's expired. But again, that answers some of my questions that I had. And I'm pretty sure I spoke about this when I was doing the live reaction to why more operators or more soldiers aren't coming out and being vocal about it and speaking about this thing. This is rubbish. Like the treatment of these soldiers, and they are more than likely 80, 90% of them are just closing their mouth, looking to just move on with life after having been treated so poorly by authorities there in their own country or in Australia. Similar to like Vietnam vets and the poor treatment that they receive from basically everybody in Australia when they return. And people are only just starting to realise, how wrong that was back then. And, maybe it'll be another 40, 50 years or more whereby people go, man, we treated the soldiers from the global war on terror pretty rough as well when they come back. The vast majority hadn't been charged of anything, but were treated as though they had committed atrocities over in another country. Just pretty crazy to me, man.
With the government, and we all move on. But I could definitely talk to all the boys that are going through it, because everyone that's currently going through it, especially RS's team, some dudes that I actually did a deployment with 2 Squadron, with E Troop. So they were there with us in Afghanistan, and we did a number of bilateral jobs with them. Mm-hmm. We let them fucking hold our pocket here and there, because obviously we're the premier unit in the Australian Defence Force. Shout out to 2 Commando. I do have a bit of knowledge, obviously, on this subject. And then from there, because of my experience with my own situation, I ended up going down and helping in Ben's trial in some capacity, and
Mm-hmm.
also was working overseas at the time, so I had a lot of time to watch the trial every single day, live stream. So I feel like there's not many people other than the journalists in the room that watched as much and were invested in much as a trial as I was.
Just on that, there was, I would say, there's having spoken with and having met the guy in person over in Perth. Shout out Christian. He's a guy that definitely put me onto a number of things, including some of the Guardians reenactment stuff, well, not reenactment, audio of the proceedings within the court hearings with clips of some of the stuff as per was discussed, but use of actors to read out those parts of the transcript. But he definitely, from what he has shared with me, watched pretty much all of that whole trial, because he had lost his job during the COVID time because he didn't want to get vaccinated, and good on him. Stood his ground, but so for his own mental health, and out of his own genuine interest, he'd just go and train from memory, is what he said. Then he'd be back and then get cleaned up, and then he'd be engrossed in watching the trial. So he watched a whole, pretty much all of it that was able to be shown, because I think Skojo talks about it as well. I think there may have been parts which were, top secret, or secret to top secret and higher, if there is higher, and those elements had to be taken away from the general public view. So that's probably where additional stuff where Skojo would have been involved in as well, I would imagine.
And now I'm also helping out Oliver Schulz from his case, because I'm no longer working for our government, and it's a very niche thing. The electronic warfare operators, you're cleared to top secret, so you have access to a lot of tools and things. And when you get out, you generally work for ASIS, ASIO, DFAT. Mm-hmm. All of my cohort work for ASIS, ASIO, and DFAT, and they're not going to put their neck out and risk the rest of their career by supporting Ben. So, or the other boys that are in trouble. So I'm happy to do so.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess it's, from that perspective, it still doesn't sit right with me. I mean, but I'm not in their position, right? Very easy for me to say. I'm a blinking YouTuber, content creator. So super easy for me to say. Super easy for me to sit in a chair and at home and commentate on what I'm listening to here and reacting to it. But a massive part of me to what Scojo's just described, and those soldiers that are there working for the government. His cohort, like you said, worked for ASIO, DFAT, and whoever else. Not being prepared to risk their neck in the Ben Robert Smith case or the Oliver Schultz case. I could understand a person not being willing to risk their neck in the case of, RS or Oliver Schultz or anybody from a military perspective, if they were a part of stuff and they believed it to be true. Like I could understand even then, I would probably suspect that those people, if the actions of Oliver Schultz and RS in terms of them being war criminals was true, I'd like to think that they'd, if it was true, that they'd want to see justice done and that they'd come and voice their opinion, do the same thing as what the other operators have done and bargained for anonymity. Similar to what, actually, that's just another thought that's popped into my head now, similar to what Scojo's talking about. Like if those other guys as well have got information and evidence and they could provide intel that would support Ben Robert Smith's case and Oliver Schultz's case, then I would have thought them being former soldiers would step up and speak to that, give evidence in that capacity. And again, seek anonymity. If they're still working for the government, seek anonymity so that they can carry on doing their job, etc., etc. I'm sure things could be worked out. But the fact that they're not, like based on what Scojo's saying here, that they're not prepared to risk their job and where they're at, I don't know, it just seems, that part seems disappointing to me. Anyway.
Because I'm certainly not going back to ASIO after the Instagram, posting photos of me wearing Speedos in gunfights on the rooftops of foreign lands. They don't really want to have operators in the field that can be identified.
That's right. All right. So, okay. So the first thing
That's interesting. I wonder when he decided or felt that he wanted to go to work in ASIO post his time in the military, because I would have thought that he would have not posted those. Or maybe he decided, listen, ASIO's not for me. I'm going to let rip and post all these other photos on his Instagram. I've seen some of his photos. They're quite funny, actually.
I want to break down is 21 witnesses. 21 witnesses.
Yeah.
21 witnesses came against this. And you really get to the, you talk to guys like yourself. You talk to, I won't name anyone else on the podcast for, reasons that we don't want to, because this is, my podcast and I don't want to put anyone else under scrutiny, but I get this information from all these other people, 21 witnesses. Well, no, it wasn't 21 witnesses. It was more like 2 or 3 or 4 witnesses.
Yeah.
But then there are a whole bunch of witnesses that were on Ben's side as well.
That's right.
That all got, during the defamation trial, that all got just kicked out and none of their testimonies were even.
Unreliable witnesses that were referred.
When I watched this was when I first watched Sam Bamford's Two Worlds Collide podcast, this episode. This was when a lot of things made sense about all the witnesses, because I would get lots of comments on my channel and on other videos. And in particular, when I'd done reactions by request to that twat Mackenzie's documentary on Ben Robert Smith, which has been blocked, by the way. So it's still sitting in the back end of my studio. It had several thousand views. Not that that matters, but there were quite a lot of comments and stuff as well. A lot of people for RS, a lot of people against RS, some people who didn't agree with the thoughts and my comments on the reaction. Neither here nor there. I don't have the original video of it, because once I uploaded it, I deleted it off my computer. And now I can't even play it in the back end. But a lot has been made of the 21 witnesses, and I had no idea until watching this podcast. So Sam did a great job of pulling this out, and so did Scott as well, of just articulating how that worked. And then when I watched what Christian sent me from Perth, the YouTube clips on the Guardian parts, I think it might be part 2 and 4 or something like that, Dar 1 and Whiskey 108, or something like that, the 2 around those 2 incidents anyway. I was getting bloody lost in terms of how the witnesses, the numbers that they were being given, 17, 4, 11, 35. It's like, what the bloody hell? This person said this, and this person used to be best mates with this guy, and he was best man at the wedding. And then several years after, then he's brought up the war crime allegations. Like, why didn't he do it? Like, there was just a whole bunch of stuff as I listened to that. So shout out again to Sam Bamford, Two Worlds Collide podcast, and Scott Jones for just highlighting, to me at least anyway, the fact that it's not a case of 21 operators from the regiment coming in and or testifying against RS, because that's what the comments that were in some of my videos were alluding to. Because I guess probably like me, they didn't know. And at that stage, I didn't know either. I was like, well, yep, it doesn't look and sound good. Like if that's the case, so if it's that many witnesses, I would have thought it'd be a slam dunk case with the prosecution. But clearly it's not 21 witnesses from the regiment coming out and testifying against RS. Like Sam and Scott has mentioned here, there's maybe 2 to 4, maybe 5 witnesses. And then again, are those witnesses, is that including that twat Hasty? And I'm assuming that includes the 3 Afghan witnesses. And one of them is blind and, well, can't see very well by his own admission. And just a number of other things in and around that. So, yeah, anyway.
To us by the judge.
So just explain, and I want you to go through, right, because there's also, we were talking before, there's witnesses of Afghan nationals, so an Afghan born and bred person that may have seen something overseas. Now they're living back in Australia.
That's right. They are. So I think we need to go back one step further and say, how did we get to the position where people are accused of war crimes? So in Afghanistan, I was there actually the first week I got to Afghanistan. We were on CSOPs. We weren't allowed to go out and do any missions because a certain patrol of the SAS had mistakenly misunderstood certain rules, and they cut off a whole bunch of people's hands to bio-enroll to get the fingerprints of the bad dudes that we'd killed. Not we, I wasn't there. And that was the patrol led by certain Andrew Hasty. So
I'm going to pause this here because it's nearly 30 minutes anyway, but I'm smiling and giggling away here, not because of the chopping off of the people's hands, but the way Scott is trying to be so diplomatic in the way that he's describing what's happened. From what I understand, Andrew Hasty wasn't out on the ground either when that took place, but I think it was a patrol that he had command of. So, and apparently he reported it as soon as he was made aware that this was what had happened. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details of that. I can't remember if Scott Jones gets into all the details, but that's why I'm chuckling away, because Andrew Hasty's name keeps getting brought into it. Maybe he's another one of those guys that just was destined for and wanted the limelight as well. He should have just maybe got into politics straight off the bat rather than looking to go and serve in a place like SASR. And like I said, there are lemons that get through everywhere, regardless of what organization you're a part of. And clearly Andrew Hasty is one of those lemons, in my opinion, that managed to slip through and convince people that he'd be good to go in the regiment. Yeah, and maybe he was. Harry Moffat has spoken positively about him, and I assume Moff's descriptions and thoughts on Hasty is based on having worked firsthand with him. And if that's the case, that's his opinion. If he's worked with him firsthand, and that's what he's basing it on. I haven't worked with Andrew. Mine's more based on what I've heard that twat say, and what I haven't heard him say. So based on what I've heard him say in Parliament on video clips, and what I haven't heard him say, which is I haven't heard him say that I voiced these concerns whilst I was a serving member, whilst I was a troop commander in the regiment. I tried and I strived to push to get change in the culture because of XYZ was happening, and I didn't think that was right. And I was met with obstacle and roadblock after roadblock, and nobody listened. Enough was enough. So then I got out of the unit and then went public or whatever. Like, I haven't heard him talk about any of that. If there was such a drastically poor culture in the regiment that he observed and that he's spoken in Parliament about having witnessed, why didn't he speak up and say something about it whilst he was in there? Like, that's my take. That's one question. There's a whole bunch of questions I have for that clown, but I'll probably never get to sit down with him. I think Sam has actually had him on the podcast. That may have been before or after, I don't know. I haven't had any interest in going back and watching that podcast that Sam has done with Andrew Hasty, just because of my dislike for Andrew Hasty. But would I sit down and chat with him? I got asked that question. Would I sit down and have a debate with Andrew Hasty? I'd love to. I'd love to ask him questions. I'd love to have a debate. I would sit and listen to him, hear what he has to say. I'm sure he would try to give answers in a typical political fashion and avoid questions that are asked and give some sort of long-winded back-end context which has got nothing to do with the question, and then try to bamboozle me or others, which is what politicians do. But yeah, in short, to that question, I would gladly sit down with him and have a chat. Would I like the guy? Not at the start. Maybe he might convince me to have a different level of respect for him at the end. But yeah, it's based on what I've heard him say, and what I've not heard him say is what I base my opinion on in regards to Andrew Hastie. But anyway, I'll come back. I'll do another reaction to this in a few days' time. Put up another episode. Shout out again to Sam Bamford and Two Words Collide podcast, to Scott Jones. Thank you, Sam, for giving me your permission to do a reaction to this. I'll try to package it up differently so that I don't get stung with a copyright infringement or notice. I don't believe the copyright has come from yourself or from Sam, but yeah, I'll try to see if this option works rather than the live reaction that I did before. So anyway, with that being said, the message is always the same, eh? To anybody out there, regardless of any challenges, difficulties, trials you may be going through, as hard as it may be, just keep tuning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other and take one day at a time. Know and trust that, at least in my experience, things can do and will get better. You just have to want them to. And that's, the critical part. As long as you want things to get better, my experience has been is that they do and that they will. Better days are ahead, and those better days are always closer than you and I think. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. So just stick at it. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there is a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.